This is Louis, and I meant for this Patreon video to be for the end of July, but it is now for the beginning of August. And on top of that, unfortunately, Patreon is currently down, so I don't have access to my list of $25 or more supporters, and I know that there are currently, I believe, 5 or more. However, I have to operate on an old list. So for those of you that supported me at the $25 amount, I would like to thank you, and I will name those that I can. However, as I said, Patreon is currently down, and I will not allow for that to delay this video. So unfortunately for now, you're going to have to deal with it. So I'd like to thank Winnie C, Fat Cat, the legendary Zoltan, Raging Buffalo, and one more person who I don't know the name of. Bless all of you for supporting me at the $25 mark, and on to the video we go. So this is Louis, and for today we're revisiting a topic that I still don't like covering, and that is, as I've dubbed it on my playlist, the death of Western gaming. I've already explained why I don't like this topic, but for those of you that may have missed it, here's the summary. I'm repeating myself. Not enough people are listening, and I could have made this video at any point in the last 6 years, and nothing I'm going to say would be any different. This is tedious, and yet it needs to be said. After all, it's the truth of the given situation, even if people want to insult me and dismiss me for stating as much. There's a serious problem in the Western gaming industry, and it's twofold: the presence of social justice activism and censorship. The latter is based on the former in every way, shape, and form to such a degree that even right-wing anti-porn organizations mimic the exact language used by the far-left social justice activists to push their own political agenda. I want you, the listener, to keep this phrase in mind because it's the objective truth of the matter. It all goes one way. I'm not telling customers to fuck off if they don't like my politics. I'm not professionally blacklisting people for being friends with people that I don't like. And I'm not sanitizing history like Chairman Mao in the name of political correctness. Or how did Ubisoft put it? Right. Historical sexism. What's the difference between this and this?
Like a hot pile of garbage?
Fear is the difference. No one is going to give a shit if someone doesn't like a Yuri anime for whatever reason, but a load of people are going to jump down your throat for saying that the cringy, politically motivated Last of Us Part 2 E3 trailer was propagandistic trash, regardless of your reasoning. There's authenticity, and there's doing something out of fear. And fear is the right way to describe the motivation behind a lot of this. People can dismiss it all they like, but I've dealt directly with those that oppose my viewpoints related to this subject for years. And none of them can stand toe-to-toe with me on it because every single time, without fail, the evidence surfaces to prove me right. You can be politically correct, but based on what's offered by fans, I'm factually correct. My perspective and any bias I may have is based on the evidence. The reason I'm recording this commentary is to point out, as always, that things are not good. Is everything bad, and is every director consumed by SJW politics? No. There are some signs of positive growth, but in large part, things in Western gaming are still really, really bad. I mean, just look at this IGN article about how players in Overwatch have basically formed a covert means to resist the totalitarian policing of in-game behavior from the developers. This is supposed to be a multiplayer game, not a fucking concentration camp, and yet for whatever reason, I'm the asshole for bringing this kind of thing up. I'm the asshole for telling you about other companies doing the exact same thing and punishing customers over words that aren't even slurs. Have you noticed that things are only getting worse? That companies are cracking down further and further and nothing satisfies them or those that told them to do this? It's never good enough. Did you just make a game set in 400 BC Greece with a canon lesbian character? It's not good enough. She's not even a disabled lesbian with a spiked cricket bat and steampunk prosthetic arm. Are comic books circling the drain because the largest publishers are printing nothing but trash? Well, let's introduce even more, quote, social justice to the medium. By the way, misogynist, if you don't like diversity in gaming, don't buy our game. You said it, Patrick Soderlund, Chief Design Officer of EA Games, a fucking member of the board, telling customers not to buy EA games. But don't worry about Pat. Don't worry about the developers screeching about being on the right side of history like they're a Southern Baptist preacher. Don't worry about the media that call for censorship in lockstep. Worry about the activist groups that hold the whip of progressive orthodoxy. Can someone give me a legitimate explanation how this isn't a new religion for upper middle class white leftists? Is there a single person that can bother trying to convince me that this isn't a new religion for lazy collectivist millennials? If it isn't the Byzantine ramblings of scripture by so-called academics, it's the incessant hypocritical moralizing by the practitioners. You and the regressive Catholics have the exact same ends. You're just in competition for converts. There's a difference between doing something for political reasons and doing the exact same thing for genuine, authentic reasons. There's lesbianism and there's political lesbianism. One is biologically determined monogender sexual interest, and the other is ideologically determined sexual interest. The latter is based on man-hatred, and, as I've already said, the Byzantine ramblings of academics. When I see articles such as this one, where SJWs get exactly what they want, and yet are unmitigated in their demands, I have to question the purposes of why this female character is present in the game. It's not because I don't want a female character in a fantasy role-playing game. It's the question of why she was included. Based on the developer's own pleading, groveling in meek words, I would wager the reason she's included and the reason she's a lesbian in the canon is out of fear of not appeasing SJW activists. Based on the evidence, based on the response, based on a decade of changes in gaming that all go one way, I think this is the case. Do you disagree? Well, then explain to me why I should just ignore every fucking title from Ubisoft, EA, and etc. from the past decade. Explain to me why you have members of the board of EA Games telling me to fuck off specifically because I'm not a progressive. In his words. But that all this is in my head. And like, he's the only motherfucker saying that, right? There hasn't been a cacophony of bourgeois leftist cocksuckers for 10 years in comics, movies, and gaming, speaking in lockstep for me to just go away simply because I'm not a member of their church. I'm not a fan of Naughty Dog. I'm never going to buy their overrated adventure games. They are pushing an agenda in their games, and if you think otherwise, you're blind or in agreement with them. You're a member of the church and a fucking liar about it, or you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not blind, and I'm not a fucking idiot. I can smell the inauthenticity of this industry all the way in upstate New York. It's a stench that I will not ignore and is influencing every game being published in the West. The pressure of social justice activism is ubiquitous, and the end result goes one way. Name me a company that isn't by some dev team that grew up under communism that isn't to some degree catering to social justice activism. Rockstar? For now. And besides them, who else? Name me one developer in the entire Western industry that is anti-SJW or publicly conservative that still has a job at a AAA company. Give me one name. You can't. This all goes one way, and I don't care who you are, you know this to be true. Don't insult me and don't dismiss me just for recognizing something that is painfully obvious to anyone paying attention. And don't bother posting this video anywhere because my opinion is the one that will be censored. By the way, if you're the co-host of a podcast with this guy,
entitlement.
I don't want to hear your opinion on SJWs anymore. You're locking arms with a former professional corporate shill and an enabler of what you became famous for protesting against. Yeah, I hate SJWs, but just ignore this guy that directly benefited while the industry was being overtaken by a censorious totalitarian ideology. You can be on the side of freedom in letting artists create their vision unmolested and standing by that as a principle, or you can be on the side of fear in imposing your agenda onto everyone. If you aren't standing up and vocally, publicly advocating freedom, you are in line with those seeking control. Because at this point, when the influence is undeniable, silence is consent to the corruption of art. Silence is genuflecting to the whims of totalitarians that are not liberals, that do not believe in freedom of speech, association, or pluralism. They are the bigots, the censors, the authoritarians, and they have the power. I'm not the activist with every company in the business coming to suck me off and hand me millions of dollars to solve phantom issues. They have organizations dedicated to promoting their totalitarian ideology and a never-ending list of them. By the way, this article on this exact subject is from yesterday. If I felt like it, I could spend an hour naming dozens of carbon copy organizations just like this one that are destroying this medium in the name of a single ideology. No one is advocating my beliefs but me. Most people in and around the gaming industry are abiding like cowards. The more time passes, the worse things get. Censorship, franchise stagnation, behavioral control, artistic malaise, price gouging, and on the list goes. I don't think a crash is coming because I don't see the evidence for it. What I see is a continuous decline, years in the making, and I believe that ramrodding of politics into fiction is at the heart of it. What this is about is doing to gaming what has been done to comics, turning an industry into a club where only the people with the right politics gain entry, and in the process salting the earth. Although in the long run, you cannot stop the talented from doing what they do best. If you turn an industry into a club, those outside of it will just start their own, and be prepared for the idea that eventually you won't be welcome, because money talks and only cowards bend the knee. We'll see who wins this in the end. Thanks for listening. So that was the Patreon video for August. I'm hoping to do at least one more this month, although I have to make sure that I come up with a decent enough subject. And I haven't done one since April, other than this one here. It's been quite a while since I've recorded one of these, much to the chagrin of some of my supporters. They would really wish me to do more. However, it's been kind of an issue to get one of these kind of videos out. I actually almost forgot. I'd like to thank all of my supporters at the $15 amount, which is Matt D, Troy H, Will M, Luykus, and Isaac O. There might be more people on that list, but as I already said, Patreon is currently down, so I don't have access to that information. I'm just going off of an old list. And once again, I'd like to thank my $25 or more supporters, Winnie C, Fat Cat, Legendary Zoltan, and Raging Buffalo. I know there's one more name on that list, but I don't have access. So I'll leave it there. I'd like to thank all of you for subscribing to my channel, sticking by me, even though it's been quite a while since I've done one of these videos. And I'd like to thank all of my supporters, especially those on Patreon, for their patience and for their continued support of my channel. Alright? Thank you.